On this episode of the WildFed podcast.
You look at what we're eating today, it's just been so truncated compared to what our traditional food sources are.
I always feel like such a barbarian when I'm at dinner and I'm the only one eating the fish skin.
When we first brought the fish on board, everybody's like, dude, get over there for a picture. And I'm like looking at that sword on its face. I haven't seen how fish jump around sometimes on the deck, and that thing has like a impale you through the chest kind of a sword.
How deep did that swordfish bite at?
1,500 feet.
Wow.
From the beach here today, 120 miles out, that was exposed. That means the archaeology that we're finding now is all the most inland stuff.
I've been enjoying shooting squirrels with my little air rifle.
I just think that's the future, man. None of the stuff that makes having a firearm complicated. I love what we do because we're showing such a range of edibility in the environment. Plants to mushrooms to algae to animals. A lot of fun at WildFed, man. I'm really enjoying it.
Episode 151 of the WildFed podcast, A Range of Edibility with Grant Guiliano, is brought to you by Surthrival. When I started Surthrival back in 2008, my goal was to create a supplement line devoted to where I saw the world headed. One where immune systems would be challenged, hormone levels would be stymied, and our ability to adapt would be limited by the chemical and electromagnetic pollution that was becoming a constant. And I believed that nature held the answers. One of the first product lines I developed was our medicinal mushroom dual extracts. Medicinal mushrooms like reishi and chaga have both been shown in scientific studies again and again to be powerful adaptogens and immune system modulators. They help your body adapt to the changing health landscape and fortify your immune system against new and existing threats. In fact, their beta-glucans, complex, non-sweet, non-glycemic sugar molecules, make your immune system more intelligent, improving your white blood cells' abilities to clean up unwanted biological intruders and its own wayward cells. Surthrival's chaga is made from wild chaga mushroom, and Surthrival's reishi is made with organic wood-grown fruit bodies. Both are extracted in alcohol and hot water for a full-spectrum product like no other. Right now and all through September at surthrival.com, our reishi and chaga mushroom dual extracts are 20% off with the coupon code ADAPTNOW. Head over to surthrival.com and use the coupon code ADAPTNOW for 20% off all mushroom products. Again, it's surthrival.com and the coupon code is ADAPTNOW for 20% off all medicinal mushroom products. Hunting season is right around the corner. If you dream of being able to successfully and sustainably harvest food from the land, this might be your perfect next step. Learning to hunt can be overwhelming, especially without a mentor. From finding land to hunt on, to developing the skills, to learning to process your harvest and finding people with shared values you can hunt with. The Hunter's Journey is a thriving online course and community with mentors ready to guide you from where you are now to becoming a successful hunter. Their team believes in stewardship of the land, reverence for the species that they hunt, and respect for all people. Many of their students got out on their first successful hunts last season utilizing what they'd learned through the Hunter's Journey. And remember, even if you're not quite ready to harvest an animal yourself, you can apply these same skills to shooting with your camera. The Hunter's Journey has a special offer just for WildFed listeners. Visit thehuntersjourney.com and enter the coupon code WildFed100 to get $100 off the course. Again, that's thehuntersjourney.com and the coupon code is WildFed100. I'm Daniel Vitalis, and you're listening to the WildFed podcast, a show about reconnecting with nature through hunting, fishing, foraging, and food. WildFed. Food is all around you. It's always fun sitting down with my good friend, WildFed producer and cinematographer Grant Guiliano, to podcast without another guest. Just us talking behind the scenes. Grant and I are currently filming season 3 of the WildFed TV show for Outdoor Channel, which means we are on the road a lot. Flying, driving, boating, hunting, fishing, and foraging, and of course, filming all of it. It's a lot of hotels, Airbnbs, and time away from home. But one constant is the time we end up spending together, so there's always a lot to talk about when we sit down to record a show like this one. We've just come off a really exciting trip out to Maryland where we did some offshore fishing and some inland pawpaw foraging, so it was fun to recap those experiences and just to see where the conversation would take us. Currently, we're in the midst of filming an archery deer hunt on an island off the coast of Maine, and we'll have 2 more episodes to make to finish out our season. All those episodes of Season 3 will go live in just a few more months, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if there's any topics you'd like to hear us discuss or guests you'd like to hear on the show, write me at info@wild-fed.com or hit us up on any of our social media feeds. We always love hearing from you. Thanks for your incredible support, and know we're hard at work creating another great season of the WildFed TV show just for you. Grant Guiliano, welcome back to your show.
Hey, Daniel. Thanks for the welcome.
Hey, I
welcome.
I appreciate all the editing you'll do on this later.
Yeah, I'll edit myself out a lot.
Make sure you tune it up. You do that, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Tell people about that.
No. I edit out stupid stuff I say.
Man, we've been getting quite a few people, mostly friends, have been coming to me and like, hey, man, I really like when you and Grant do shows together. You should do more of those. So.
When we went to see Michael Judd recently, too, he was like, oh, I listened to a podcast with you guys, so I knew like who you were before we started filming with him.
I think sometimes for folks, it's like a more intimate look into how we really are. Not like I'm being somebody else, but there's a formality to interviewing guests.
I can pull the goofy out of you.
Yeah, you can draw a little of that out of me. Man, I did not use pawpaws in my smoothie this morning. So I brought all those 2 cases of pawpaws home. And I'm driving home from your house. I drop you off. It's like, what, midnight or something, right? We'd driven up from
Maryland,
from Judd's in Maryland. And we had those 2 flats of pawpaws fresh. And, man, the aroma is intense, right? I've been describing it as fruity nail polish remover.
Yeah, it's not like offensive like nail polish remover, but
it's very fruity.
It's like overripe bananas, but better smelling.
But like you turn it up to 11, right? Like the smell is just so outrageously like aromatic.
Like they have that gaseous quality to them, like bananas do.
Where you feel like they would ripen things if you put them in a bag with them or something. Like there's a gas coming out. So I get home and Avani just normally, like if I was to make a stock, like a bone broth or a stock, I just can't do it overnight. Normally I like to do it overnight, but she's like, she can't sleep, you know? And at first I was like, get over it. And then I was like, no, she really can't sleep to it. It's like too stimulating to her. So I got to make stock in the day. And just strong smells.
She was explaining to me, it's not that she doesn't like the smell, it's just that it keeps her up because it's stimulating her olfactory sense.
Which I'm like, what? Because I'm such a sound sleeper. I mean, I got my share of problems, but sleeping's not been one of them. So it doesn't bother me, but I was driving home. I was like, there's no way I can bring these pawpaws in the house. So I leave them outside on my front porch. And I'm thinking, like, it's bear season. You know, I was just like, these are smelling very strong. But it's like, hopefully everything's good. So I leave the 2 cases outside for a bit. And then I come inside. And the smell is coming into the house so strong that I was like, I better freeze them now. So I bring them all down to the basement. But I'm like, she's asleep, you know. I bring them down to the basement. I put them all in the freezer.
Through the house or around the back?
Through the house. So I know I should have gone around the back because I was like, great, there's that smell. And there's 3 that were unripe because we picked a lot of unripe ones. Thank you, Michael Judd, for letting us do that because
for filming
we need it for filming sake. So these ones are going to ripen, but they're not ripe. So I leave those 3 in the kitchen. I put all the rest in the freezers down in the basement. I go to sleep. And I wake up to Avani going, baby. And she asks so specifically, like it's like a yes or no question. She's like, did you bring any pawpaws in and leave them in the kitchen? And I'm like, I've been driving, right? I did that whole drive, you know, so I did not want to get up. So I was like, yes. And then I'm like, switch to the nicest voice you can. I was like, but they're just 3 unripe ones. The rest are in the freezer. And she's like, okay. And then I was just like, went back to sleep, and I felt so guilty. I was like, should I get up and but I was like, they're not even ripe, as if she's just smelling the residual, I'm thinking, or whatever. But now the smell, like, in her defense, man, the smell coming out of my freezers is insane. Like, even though they're frozen solid. But when you came over the other night and we were going to split them up, and so we opened the freezer and it's like, you take one, I'll take one. Yeah. You take one, I take one. So we ended up with half, but I don't know what varieties you've got versus what varieties I ended up with.
It is amazing how they smell that much even when they're frozen.
It's
bizarre.
I left one out the other day, and Kendall was like, "I think I might be sick of pawpaw just from the smell."
Mark Fulkerson, our good friend, but also somebody who works at Surthrival. I was talking about this on our Surthrival group text thread about the pawpaws, and Jesse and Leilon were both saying like, "Well, I've never had one. I'd love to try them." And Mark's like, "I'll take care of you guys." So he ships them up right away because he works at that health food store part-time too, So he ships pawpaws to Leilon and to Jesse, and he says in the text thread, like it's not that I don't like them, but I'm good with like 3 per year. And I'm trying to argue in defense of the pawpaws. So this is where I'm trying to get to. There is something weird about pawpaws. Because I posted about them on Instagram yesterday. That got a ton of engagement.
Oh, good.
A ton, man. So many people have comments, things to say about pawpaws. But several people wrote being like, "Hey, just a warning. Some people have strong reactions to cooked pawpaw. Some people can't tolerate pawpaw."
To cooked pawpaw?
Yeah, they were saying, I got all these things. I asked everybody if they had any references because I'd like to go a little deeper on this. But what I've personally noticed is a scratchy throat, similar to a lot of wild foods that, if you eat a little bit, you're okay. But, you've experienced this probably with the shoots of cattail.
Yep.
So same kind of a thing. Like my throat's been all raw because
like
I've been
daylilies, maybe.
Yeah, daylilies do that too. Like a lot of wild foods do that. You got to kind of be sparing. So, but a lot of times you cook them and that kind of comes out. Anyway, I've been taking the pawpaws like Michael showed us, potato peeling them and breaking them up, taking the seeds out, and then using the pulp in my smoothie instead of blueberries. And it's really good, by the way. It's good for replacing the chia seeds because now that I'm like trying to,
It's thick.
Yeah, it's thickening because, the oxalate thing that I've been talking so much about. So cut out the chia seeds, been using those, but all day, everything I ate was sort of unpleasant because my throat hurt.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Man. So I think I just sort of hit a threshold with pawpaws. So I'm kind of laying off today, taking a day off.
Have you been putting colostrum and pawpaw in your smoothie?
Yeah.
I bet that's good.
And the yet to be named secret ingredient that I'm launching at
cool.
Surthrival.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect little smoothie.
It's really nice.
Did you put chocolate in still?
The nibs, yeah.
Huh, that sounds good.
Nibs with pawpaws are really good.
What was I going to say? I noticed that when you eat them frozen, it kind of has like a bitter taste to them. Have you noticed that?
I didn't notice that.
Maybe I'm leaving some
Too much
residual skin on.
Yeah, I think you got to go kind of a layer deeper.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll see if that smell infuses any of the meats.
Mine are in a Ziploc bag in the freezer. Still kind of smell it though. Maybe we should have one today.
It's pretty powerful. I can be convinced. I really came to enjoy at first it was the Susquehannas, the orange fleshed, the one I was calling the American mango, just that orange flesh, that really strong flavor. Mm-hmm. But I'm really coming to appreciate the PA Goldens and the Shenandoahs, which are more like that vanilla custard, whiter fleshed. So lighter,
much more
flavor.
mild.
Yeah, more mild.
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless, the pawpaw is a pretty wild, amazing fruit. I mean, I really like it.
Yeah, it's fun to finally play around with it a little bit.
And we came home from that trip with a good deal of fish.
Yeah, that was a good trip. Have you cooked swordfish yet, by the way?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to figure out, I got to work on my swordfish cooking technique, but it came out really good regardless. I just think the smell is a little strong. Like last year we harvested that bluefin tuna, and we're still both eating frozen bluefin. I think you must be getting pretty low by now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too, but got a little bit left. I took out a huge loin piece 2 weeks ago just before we left. I mean, it was probably like 4 or 5 pounds in one freezer bag. Still so good. But I always eat that as poke. I don't.
Yeah, me too. I haven't cooked any of it.
Okay, we cooked one piece early in, and it was like, man, I need a commercial kitchen if I'm going to cook this. I'm not cooking this at home. It's disgusting, man. Because it's only the bad smells of fish.
Huh? Just too
and
oily?
The oils are like spraying everywhere because you just want to like sear it.
Yeah.
But it stinks up the house so strong,
Yeah.
So my brother, while we were gone on this trip, my brother and his wife, Katali, so Caleb and Katali took Avani out to dinner or invited her out. And Caleb's like fishing for something about me that annoys Avani, right? Because he's like, come on, like tell me something about my brother, that drives you crazy. And she's, my wife is very kind. So she's like, if I'm honest with you, Caleb, there's just nothing. I can't think of anything. And he's like, oh yeah, right. He's like, I'll tell you one thing. He's like, how about the stuff he cooks? He's like, well, he's still hanging on to this. He's like, one time he came over my house and cooked a whole pot of crabs and all my clothes. And I remember they were shrimp, first of all, Caleb, if you hear this. Those are Gulf of Maine shrimp. But he's like, all my clothes smelled like it. And Avani just was like, no, nothing. And I'm thinking like, yeah, right. The number of times I've done that, But anyway, so
I love how you went over to Caleb's house and just cooked shrimp.
Well, we were so early in the business.
Caleb hates fish.
He won't even. He's been eating like oysters occasionally and things, but yeah, he's not a seafood person. But anyway, so cooking the swordfish, it puts off a lot of
people like to grill swordfish.
I was thinking like
thick steaks of swordfish.
Have you cooked any yet?
Yeah, what I did was cut it. I just had a piece that I brought up to my mom's camps, and I was feeding a lot of people with other food. Like there was more meat in the dinner, so I just cut it up into like inch and a half size cubes and
shish kebabbed it.
Seasoned it and put it in the oven and just baked it for like 10 minutes.
Was it good?
It was great. It's like butter. It's like so good.
Did you just go by feel, or did you check temperatures or anything?
I looked up a recipe real quick. I was like, how can I feed this many people? I'll just do little bites. Let's see if somebody has a recipe for that.
And what was the level of doneness?
I mean, it was cooked all the way. It was cooked all the way through. I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know. It was like flaky and buttery, but it was definitely cooked all the way,
I started looking up recipes, and more like I was looking for like technique and philosophy, not recipes actually.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do you approach swordfish? Mm-hmm. Because I always disliked swordfish. So what was happening is either I would buy it at the supermarket, it'd be old, and I didn't know. I was just young, I remember early on when I was experimenting with food being like, well, this is gross. And then I'd try it in restaurants and it would be really dry. Mm-hmm. And then last year when we were bluefin fishing, you remember somebody in the tuna fleet caught that sword somehow like pretty close to 5 miles out or something, like pretty shallow water. Anyway, I got a piece of that fish before it was frozen. I brought it home, cooked it, and it was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know. It's like one of the best things I'd ever eaten. I just had no idea. So it's like, okay, swordfish is back on the menu for me. So then we catch this swordfish, but end up freezing it, come home, and I thawed out, and I got a steak about, I'm going to say like 4 inches thick. And I start reading online, and everything I'm reading is like cook it to 145. I'm like, no way, because my experience is slightly undercooked is better, right?
I agree.
With swordfish. So
most things.
Yeah, a lot of things. Not everything, though. So I start messing around with it. I'm reading other recipes. Then I start getting into people being like, no, this is just like restaurant food safety stuff. You want it at like 120. I ended up going to an internal temperature of 110 at the center of that steak. I preheat my oven to, I want to say like 400 or something like that. And then I seared both sides and let the sort of the watch it kind of cook up the sides a bit, flipped it, did the same, and then popped it in the oven. And then I just checked it till I got to 110 internal, which is like, was perfect. It was perfect. And the tuna the swordfish we caught was pretty fatty, huh?
I don't know.
Man, it's got some nice fat.
If it is, it's all marbled throughout.
So
like it's not like a steak where there's.
Well, hang on. Frosty cut it for us. So when we came in, one of the mates on the boat cut that swordfish, and he got to it before I could even. Like I wanted to cut that fish, He got at it so fast that I was like, I had to just accept, like, okay, I'm not going to get to do this, and he didn't. He's a fishing mate. He's not a butcher. So it's pretty roughly cut up. And the steak that I took out had a piece. I could see that it was the top loin of the fish.
Yeah.
But there was still attached to it a piece of the belly of the fish.
Okay.
That was so fatty that a piece like the size of like a domino or something, like a small piece of onion, I cut it in half and split that. She couldn't even finish the bite. Really? It was like butter.
How was it taste like?
It was amazing.
It's neutral?
Yeah, neutral, but like tuna belly in that, like, you know how toro just kind of melts in your mouth, but this was cooked, so even more so because now it's warm, so it just like liquefies on your tongue. Really, really good.
Yeah, I'm finding the whole, like so far, this fish is very mild. It's like usually, like same with what you were saying, I haven't had like the best experiences with swordfish throughout my life. I've always eaten it and liked it, but it's always been pretty strong tasting. You know, it's like pretty fishy.
Yeah,
quote unquote fishy. But this swordfish so far, it's like, because it's still pretty fresh, it's just so neutral.
It's
and
very
and
fresh.
it melts in your mouth.
I read Linda Greenlaw's books, you know, so she's where we're going to be heading up in this weekend to set our tree stands on that island. We're going to be quite close to Isla Ho, which, by the way, I was looking at the satellite maps yesterday, looking for where we'll land the boat on this island, because there's 2 beaches, and I'm thinking about just pushing my boat right up onto the sand.
Okay.
So something I want to go over with you later today. But when I look at these islands, you know, there's that map that we printed off from the Land Trust, and it shows all those islands, and it looks kind of like after the island we go to, it's just the open Atlantic, but it's not. Right after is Isla Ho. So we're in a very protected area because the islands are all sheltered by bigger islands. Anyway, Linda's from that right up there, Isla Ho. And she was, you know, famously a sword captain. And so they were going out to the canyons similar to what we were fishing, except to access the canyons off Maine's like double the length of the trip. We'll get into that in a minute too. I'll explain more what I'm talking about. But they would go out for like 30 days at a time to fish for swordfish.
Wow, that's
okay.
amazing.
So when you go to your supermarket fish deli or whatever, fishmonger, fish counter, did you get a swordfish that was caught on day 1 of that trip or day 30 of that trip?
It's not like they're freezing it on the boat.
No, they're just putting it on ice. They're packing it with ice, you know what I mean? So I think
Whole fish.
They must like...
Got it.
Yeah, but maybe even head it and cut the day, because it's just like the fish carcass, and then it's packed in and with ice, you know? But that goes into a big hold, and they don't come back till they fill the hold. So is your local fishmonger, like let's say you went to Real Pros, like the fishmongers down in York or something. They know captains, they know the fishery. No doubt they're negotiating for a fresher fish. But if you're the fish buyer at the supermarket and you oversee regionally 6 different stores or something, are you getting stuck with those older fish, and then you bring a slice home? So now that fish has been 30 days on ice, then another week till you get it home to cook it, and you're like, man, these are really fishy. I think that might be partially why.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Makes sense. I don't know if I'm right, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's something like
30
that.
days on ice, I mean, it's not frozen.
No, just very, very cold.
And I assume that after a while, even though we both have the swordfish vacuum packed and frozen, it's going to get fishier as time goes on.
Right. So one thing to keep in mind too is that a freezer does not 100% arrest things. Like, you still have enzymatic processes happening. They just happen, like if you were to dry age meat, like if you hung a deer and you're dry aging, what's happening is enzymes present in the meat are breaking down the connective tissue, and that meat gets more tender and flavor is enhanced and all of that. Moisture's lost. But enzymes are still at work. You put that thing in the freezer, the enzymes are working at a dramatically reduced rate, but they're still working. It doesn't arrest that. I don't know what temperature you have to get to for that to completely stop, but not at normal temperatures. And then clearly fats continue to oxidize, just again at a hyper-reduced rate, but you've no doubt noticed particularly if you leave the skin on fish, and then you got that adipose layer right under the skin, so that fat right there, that gets fishier as time goes on, like after it's been in the freezer a year. So clearly that's still oxidizing as well. So, you know, and then we were in that Airbnb, and so we show up and we've got a cooler full of, what do we have in there? We had swordfish, sea bass, mahi, golden tile, blue line tile. So we had all those fish, and it was all fresh on ice. And we went and bought a cheap vacuum sealer at Walmart, and we set up a little station in the Airbnb, and I kicked the temperature down on that refrigerator's freezer to -6. That's as low as it would go, -6. And it was Mike who came to me and said, hey, man, just be aware, like, you get that thing too cold, you can freeze the water lines to the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Which now I think is what I did to my freezer at my house. You know, there's all that water damage on my floor.
Oh, I don't know.
I think I might have froze the water lines.
Okay.
Anyway, we just ordered a new fridge this week.
Oh, cool. You think you'll turn that one into like a meat cooler?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, have you messed? Well, probably not. But are you going to mess with dry aging the swordfish?
Well, I did dry age the last piece just a day in
Okay.
my fridge. Yeah, I think it's going to get better from that.
Cool.
But anyway, I just want to kind of close out that thought. Like, the colder you freeze something, this has been this ongoing conversation amongst in our friend group of like, is it cold or really cold?
What temperature's your ice, bro?
Yeah, that's the question I'm always asking. Is this ice cold? And people are like, dude, it's so stupid. It's ice. It's like, is it? Is it ice at 32 or is it ice at -6?
I was at your house getting the fish and the pawpaws, and I was like, oh, should I put some ice in this? And you're like, no, the ice is warmer than the fish.
Yeah, we had the fish at -6 in vacuum seal bags.
Yeah.
And we were packing that into a cooler, and you're like, should I put ice on this? And it's like, well, the ice is going to melt the frozen fish. The fish is colder than, you don't have ice at -6 like this meat is. So, yeah, so people, not everybody's got a good grip on physics. Say it like that, you know? But, you know, that's the thing. If somebody runs out...
Mark, don't take this personally.
You see it all the time. People go to the store and they pick up ice and they don't have a cooler. And they just come home with like a bag of ice. And it's like, dude, that ice is getting warm now. And it's no longer capable of doing what you're hoping it's going to do. It's not going to last as long. Anyway. But my point is, that's really fresh swordfish because, you know, we killed the fish. I think it's good to let it age a couple days before it gets frozen. Then we set up that station, got it down to -6, and it's in good shape. I'm really excited about it.
Me too.
Well, there's quite a bit of it, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
Yeah. Do you remember when we first brought the fish on board? I was so nervous about, because everybody's like, dude, get over there for a picture. And I'm like looking at that sword on its face. Like, are you kidding? You know, having seen how fish jump around sometimes on the deck, like you think a fish is dead and then all of a sudden it starts jumping around and that thing has like a impale you through the chest kind of a sword, you know. I was a little nervous about that.
I was like, okay, Daniel, I got to get this shot. Hold the sword up a little bit. And you're like, dude.
I'm not really feeling comfortable
You
with
did
that.
it though.
Yeah, with a gloved hand and like a locked out straight arm ready to fight that. I mean, but that was really awesome to have that experience. I guess we should talk a little bit about the boat and kind of what we did.
Is that picture in the newsletter?
No,
I'm just trying to think of how people can.
I'm gonna post that. I'll probably have it posted by the time this. I'll get it up on Instagram
Before this airs.
Picture of the fish, yeah.
Okay.
But this all started with our friend Austin Enser, who captains a boat called the Primary Search out of Ocean City, Maryland, and he invited us down. And we've been so busy with this production of the show. I didn't do a lot of research on Ocean City. Did you do any before we went down?
No, not at all.
So we just kind of showed up there, like Ocean City. No idea what it is, and it was like, oh, it's like an oceanside tourist attraction
/ fishing town
/ sport fishing town. Yeah, particularly. I think we did see some commercial boats, but it's a sport fishing, bill fishing really is what it seemed to be, like big money bill fish tournaments.
Yeah,
you know, people making hundreds of thousands plus. Even seven
what was
figures.
Brian was talking about a $300,000 fish that he caught.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, so this major
yellowfin,
sport fishing
maybe?
tournament thing. But Austin's really into, and he's part of that fleet, but he's really into the meat side too. And so he invited us down. And one cool thing, if you're listening to this and you got on any of your whatever your phone satellite maps, if you got Apple, it's your Apple Maps, or you can see this on Google Earth.
We'll get right back to the show in a moment, but first, one of our favorite episodes of WildFed Season 1 is now free on YouTube, hosted by My Outdoor TV International. The video name is WildFed Free Preview, but you can also see it on our website, wild-fed.com. It's an episode about harvesting wild rice and hunting black bears, and features a meal with Evan Hennessy, one of New Hampshire's most celebrated chefs. If access to cables kept you from seeing the WildFed TV show, this is a great way to get a taste of the series. The rest of Season 1 is available through Outdoor Channel's streaming service, My Outdoor TV, and Season 2 should be hosted there soon too. Currently, we're busy shooting and producing our 3rd season, and I can hardly wait for you to see it. It'll be debuting this winter right around the new year. In the meantime, head over to YouTube or wild-fed.com to see a full 22-minute episode. Now, back to the show.
If you look at like Google Earth, you'll see that as you come off the eastern seaboard of the United States, the water stays fairly shallow as you go offshore. From Maine, it's about 120 miles, but from down in Ocean City, it's about 60. You come out, and then all of a sudden, there's a clear line where the continent of North America just drops off. And where it does that, there's canyons carved into that drop-off, that slope, because that, during the last glacial maximum, when all the water that's now in the ocean, like a lot of that water was locked up in glaciers. So that was all exposed land. And that was rivers that had cut through that and created these canyons that are now 500 feet, from the surface down to the top of the canyon. But then they're, I want to say something like 4,000 feet to the bottom of the canyon from the surface level of the water. So these are like deep canyons cut into the continental shelf. And that's kind of where we were headed out fishing. And Ocean City is a great place to do it from because it's a much shorter trip as you get up to Maine. There are boats that still go out there to fish, but, it's twice the distance. So that was quite a journey to get out there.
How deep did that swordfish bite at?
1,500 feet.
Wow.
1,500
They're just swimming around down there.
As Austin was describing it, I think primarily... I know so little about sword fishing, so somebody's probably going to correct me on some of this.
Is that fishing with a sword?
You don't want to edit that one out.
You beat me to it.
So, 1,500 feet of water, man, with an electric reel, which is kind of like a winch.
Yeah.
It sort of felt like fishing with a winch. But 1,500 feet, we often talk about, and have talked a lot about on the show about going out ground fishing. That's something we do here for pollock and haddock and cod. And we fish, 3 to 400?
Yep.
400 would be on the deep side. I'd say about 300 feet. Reeling up from 300 feet all day is very doable. We do it for 8 hours sometimes, right? So it's like drop to the bottom. Usually you catch you're going to have a haddock or a pollock on in the first minute to 3. Mm-hmm. And then it's all the way back up, and then it's just sometimes it's right away, and sometimes it's 2 fish at a time, and we do that all day. But it's tiring.
But
you get home. Yeah, it's doable. You get home, you've got bruises usually in the armpit area from locking the rod butt down with your arm, or in your hip if you dig the rod into your hip. I usually have a blister or 2 on my hands from turning the reel.
Tight
my
forearms.
Forearms are spent. But 1,500 feet with a fish that's over 100 pounds. Everybody I talk to,
it's taking line, then you're taking it back, and it's taking line out.
And tuna fishing is a similar. You've got a very strong, heavy fish, but they tend to stay much closer to the surface. Even if they sound, they're not going down to 1,500. So anyway, everybody I talked to about it, because I've been talking to fishermen, like I saw my neighbor Will yesterday, and I was like, kind of sucks because I never really felt the fish in the rod the way I would if I was reeling it. And he's like, yeah, but who wants to do that? It's like, that's what everyone keeps saying to me. So anyway, we got that fish at 1,500 and winched him up from the deep. It's pretty cool. Once he came up and we see that sword, he's like shaking his sword up out of the water and stuff. It's pretty
beautiful
amazing.
Fish.
But so what Austin explained to me was the Gulf Stream. So that's that warm water coming up out of the Gulf, up the northeast, and then it kind of gets up towards like Nova Scotia, turns a hard right, and heads east over to the UK, right? That's the Gulf Stream. It's like a river of warm water in the otherwise cold Atlantic. So I don't want to say gyres, but I think they're more like vortices of warm water break off of the Gulf Stream, and they spin off, and they're big, like maybe 30 miles across.
They come towards shore.
Yeah, they come toward, well, not towards,
not
toward
shore,
in the direction of
yes.
shore. Yeah. And they'll have all those pelagic fish will be in that water, and they'll go with that piece that's broken off because it's big. And they end up, and that comes in and gets over those canyons. And when that does, that creates like a huge upwelling, and that brings like nutrients up from in the canyons. And then that brings in all kinds of bait fish, and then all of the pelagic fish, so your billfish, your marlin, your swords, your what else, sailfish, also your tunas. They're all feeding in that. Your what else, wahoo. So they fish in those canyons, but they're specifically following those warm water vortices that break off, eddies they call them, those eddies that break off. Well, this is the first year, I think he said in 11 years, been their worst year in 11 years, where those are still breaking off, those eddies, but they haven't been making it to the canyons. So the fishing was not, so there's this whole strategy of getting over the canyons when that warm water's in there. But if you remember, we got over the canyons and there was still no water there. They thought that day it was going to happen, but it didn't. And then we went further out and we got into that warm water, but we were not over the canyons. We were over 7,000 feet of water.
Oh my God.
And do you remember the color of the water?
It's deep dark blue, right?
Like weird jelly blue, almost purple. And it left like sugar crystal, like it looked, the boat looked like a sugar cookie.
I never realized that different ocean water has different salinity to it.
Yeah, the temperature of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it changes the color, and it changes because everybody I've been talking to who fishes seriously, offshore fishes, and I'm like, yeah, I just came from this trip. Everybody's like, oh, did you see the purple water?
Oh, really?
Oh, did you see the purple water? You know, so, like,
yeah, I knew about the purple water.
Yeah, of course I did. So that was really cool to experience that. Yeah. But that wasn't over the canyons, but we were out over that 7,000 foot expanse called the Abyssal Plain.
Is it abyssal or abysmal?
Well, I was thinking it was Abysmal Plain, which I thought was a killer death metal band name. So if you're out there and you're into death metal, Abysmal Plain, good name. It's almost as good as Dr. Claw. Next time, Gadget. But it's Abyssal Plain. And I learned that the Abyssal Plain covers 50% of the surface of the Earth.
Oh, that's right. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's like half of the planet is Abyssal Plain.
Wow. Which means what?
Well, the abyss, right? So it's like the deepest hole, right? The abyss. And then that's the plain, or in other words, the sort of big flat plain. Because if you look at the bottom of the ocean, you've got mostly Abyssal Plain, and then you'll get these seamounts, you know, that'll like rise up out of that. And then if you have something deeper than the Abyssal Plain, that's a trench. So like
the Marinara Trench.
The best Italian restaurant name ever, the Marinara Trench. Or maybe the worst Italian restaurant name.
A Italian restaurant that serves marinara dishes of seafood that is taken up only from the Mariana Trench.
Right, mostly.
Which is the deepest trench in the ocean.
Right, amphipods.
Yeah,
largely.
It's like Google, just give it a quick Google.
Yeah, Mariana Trench,
monsters
amphipods.
Come out of there.
So if you're listening to this and you know anybody who puts traps down in the Mariana Trench, just know that I really want to eat one of those giant amphipods, and if you can help me...
This could be a potential episode of the TV show.
That's what I want to do. Send something down 7 miles to the bottom. What kind of real?
And then Daniel turns into a monster.
Something
starts
really
growing
horrible
gills.
Happens.
Okay, so what you were saying...
Anyway, the point is, can we get serious here? Let's get back to oceanography. Yeah, so you have the Abyssal Plain. Beneath it is a trench. Above it, I think, is like a seamount.
Okay, gotcha.
And then you have that whole continental shelf story, which, what's fascinating about that, it just gets me, like normally if I hear like Graham Hancock on Joe Rogan, let's say, I'm like, yeah, like it's really cool, but a bit of like intellectual masturbation, because I feel like you can't really validate any of this, but it's exciting to think about. But then I start thinking, wait a second, 15,000 years ago, from the beach here today, 120 miles out from Maine, so like if you went down to like Wells and Ogunquit Beach or something, 120 miles away is where that continental shelf drop-off is. That was exposed, 120 miles of land. And then I think about like, okay, well, where do most humans live? Well, they live close to the sea, particularly back then.
Right.
How long have humans been in North America? Well, at least 15,000 years. We know that for sure. So that means the archaeology that we're finding now is all the most inland stuff. But we have like no idea. There's just no way to know. You remember last year when I think it was the fishmonger's boat brought up that mastodon tooth from the seafloor, just dredging. I think they were dragging.
Was it a mastodon or woolly mammoth?
Could have been a it was a mammoth or a mastodon.
Yeah,
maybe it was a mammoth tooth.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about
one
what
of the
it looked
two.
like. But anyway, that stuff's there because that was exposed land.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have the ability to go down there and do archaeological digs, and it just makes you real curious.
Very.
Before the last warming and, the climate change that we made it through.
Whoa, hey. Let's
Yeah,
not get political.
No, I'm just saying. We've been through some climate changes before and did pretty well despite it. But anyway, what's down there?
What is down
Besides
there?
swordfish,
Yeah.
It's just wild to think
It's really
about.
cool to think about. I never really considered that before.
We're just like, we have such a limited capacity to conceive of it all, like to hold all of this stuff together and then to see how it all interconnects. Like to try to get a global picture of it all.
Right.
It's like we're just so fragmented. It's really hard to get just a big picture perspective. But anyway, back to the fish. So yeah, we caught that fish 1,500 feet down, brought it up to the surface, pulled it over the gunnels. Man, I couldn't believe it. Because we had hooked into a few swordfish that day. We kept losing them.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, Austin kept doing this one drift. And each time we'd drift through that area, we'd hook into one, and then we'd lose it. And the time that we caught it, we were on a drift. And he goes, you know what? I want to do this drift over. I got a feeling.
I'll just do it one last time.
This zips us around to the far end. Start the drift again, and we hooked into that fish. And when it came up, I was just prepared to not catch it. I just have learned in our many hours of bluefin fishing, like, just don't get your hopes up. So I was just mentally prepared to lose it. And my job was to run the reel, which meant push a button.
You kept calling out the depths too.
Yeah, that's my job. 600 feet, 500 feet, just pushing this button. But when the fish came up over the gunnels and we picked it up, its skin, I later read that swordfish lose all their scales as they reach adulthood. So I've never seen a juvenile one with scales. I'd be curious to see. But by the time they're adults anyway, they have no scales. When we picked the fish up, its skin like scraped across my forearm. And man, I'm still healing. It was like really rough sandpaper. And you remember that day we went to Michael Judd's and showed you my arm, and it was like all scaly, dried skin.
Yeah.
It's still like that, man. Just from like skin
It's
damage.
too much of an exfoliant.
It's a very strong exfoliant.
What grit sandpaper would you say it was?
Oh, it's like 85.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Cool.
brutal. You could sand wood with it.
Wow.
What do you think about that? Like maybe a pedicure type exfoliant made of swordfish skins?
Yeah. I was trying to think of something.
It's incredibly unsustainable. I don't know if you've ever seen the stuff where it's like because we talk so much about the problems with petroleum and particularly with plastics. But prior to plastics, many of the things that we were constructing had to be made, they had to be made out of natural materials, which sounds good till you realize some of those materials are like whale baleen and turtle shell and stuff like that, and then you realize like, oh, wait a second, we don't really want to be.
It's like when we were using whale oil to heat in fuel.
Yeah. You only do that so long.
So they were fishing for swordfish a second way, where they're dropping a line from a buoy, kind of like you would use a bobber on a pond and like a worm.
Yeah, essentially. So it was a buoy with a flag on it, and that line went out away from the other one. So we had the one that went straight down from the boat, and then we had one that was out behind us, hanging down from a buoy. And basically, if the fish grabbed that bait, we had a squid on there. If it grabbed that bait and sounded, the whole buoy would go underwater. And if the fish grabbed that bait and continued to swim, it would take tension off the line and the buoy would lay down flat.
Okay.
We never did hook up on that. Oh. You know what was cool that happened, though, was you remember when it wasn't the fish we actually caught, but we were hooked into a swordfish. And then all of a sudden, Austin, who's sitting up on that, the bridge, which is like a story above the deck of the boat.
So he's a tower
up
on
high
the boat.
on the tower. And he's like, mahi all around the boat.
That's so cool.
Right? And all of a sudden look over the gunnels and just...
We were hooked into a swordfish at the time,
yeah,
like you said.
Yeah. And
he was like, focus on the swordfish. And I don't know if they just ignored him.
They ignored him.
But
Frosty grabbed a rod, and then... So there was mahi, not big ones. They were probably maybe like, 20 inches or something like that.
Yeah.
21 inches long. But there was a school of them all around the boat. So you look over the boat into that water, and you just see like that electric green.
So cool.
They're the prettiest, huh?
I wish I could have, because I had to focus on you.
With the camera.
Yeah, with the camera. But I wish I could have taken a minute. But we hooked into some more later. Or did we lose it and fish there?
No, we fished it all there. So what had happened was we had done that drift a couple times.
Yeah.
And Brody and I had saw just a piece of flotsam. I don't know what it was. It looked like a pizza box or something was floating at sea.
Flotsam's just another way to say trash?
Yeah, at sea, though.
Yeah,
Flotsam and
right.
jetsam is like trash at sea. So mahi will congregate. You'll get them congregated on anything that floats at sea. So you'll get like, I've caught them before, for instance, under like a life jacket. I've caught them before under a piece of plywood. So I think what's happening is you're basically getting like reverse structure.
Yep.
So you've got, something out in what's otherwise just this open desert of endless water. And then you've got something floating, creates some shade. So then you start to have an accumulation of bait fish under that, and that starts to bring in the dolphin fish. So somehow we're close to that piece of flotsam, and those mahi come over to the boat. And I just remember I'm running that reel, but I don't even know who did it.
I think it was Foster.
Frosty catches that mahi, and it jumps, and he is reeling at the same time, and it just comes flying in the boat and smacks Brody right in the back. That's really awesome. Priceless, man. So we ended up with all those mahi too, which are also good eaters.
Yeah, because then the swordfish broke off, and everybody got on the mahi rods.
Yeah, and that was fun.
Yeah, it's like they were jumping 10 feet out of the water.
Yeah, it was great.
It was just like a quick little burst of excitement.
Because I did see one piece of footage. I don't know if Mike took it maybe from up on the tower.
Yeah.
Where the fish is almost at the level of the tower.
Maybe.
It jumps pretty high where, it's very high. They were like one of the funnest fish to catch.
I'd love to do that.
They're so acrobatic. I feel so bad when you're running the camera. And
it's okay.
Yeah, you're always really cool about it.
Well, it's fun, Yeah. It's like documenting it's telling the story to other people. So I definitely like going out on trips, and I don't love, I'm very excited not to edit this episode. I'll say that.
Yeah. Just the fishing episodes.
Yeah, fishing episodes. But yeah, no.
Why?
Because it's just so much of the same thing,
Until something happens.
Yeah. Like looking through all that footage is like, oh my God.
Yeah, and you got to look through it all.
Yeah.
You can't miss anything.
So thanks, Cody.
We were, you had gone to take a nap, I think. We were at the Airbnb, and Mike, who was running our second camera, and I were talking about fishing, and he was asking me questions like, well, what's your favorite fish to catch? And I was like, that was like wrong question, like let's reframe that a little bit. And then I started thinking about it, because it was like, well, I think you'd almost have to break them into classes of fish. I think he was asking me first what my favorite fish is to eat. And I said to him, look, everybody likes to front like this fish and that fish. I was like, white fleshed fish, pretty similar. Like, to try to say they're that dramatically different, like a golden tile versus a haddock versus a halibut. It's like, they're pretty similar, And then I was like, you kind of have like your red fleshed fish, like I started thinking about, like a tuna or like a wahoo or something. So we were like talking about, I was like, I'd rather almost categorize them. Like I'd pick like a favorite white fish and a favorite, red meated fish maybe. And then he's like, well, what about catching them? And I was like, oh. And then we got into this thing. I was like, it's like the tug is the drug, as they say, where I was like, I almost don't care what I'm fishing for. It's the feeling of the fish on the line that's so electric. And that led us into a conversation about microfishing. And I think you got up during that conversation.
We were on the walk, and I was like, what is this microfishing?
Yeah, so we start looking it up, because I had seen something about it. So I was like, I'm pretty sure in Japan there's like a little scene of microfishing where you're kind of using like the rod tip, 3 segments of a tenkara rod, and just setting up with these, I don't even know what the hook size is. These are like really, really, really tiny hooks. So small, like smaller than what we'd fish for ocean smelt with.
Remember that game where the little fish would open their mouth and have a magnet in it, and then you would have a...
No, I don't.
Anyways.
No, I don't. Anyway, so we start looking it up, and sure enough, there's a scene where people are catching basically like minnows in the skinniest water, sometimes in like what's like a puddle or a little like drainage ditch next to a building or something like that. Anything that'll hold fish, and then they're trying to
Get the
accumulate
smallest fish.
Well, more like accumulate species.
So keep them?
No, more like you want to get photos.
Yeah.
But instead of the biggest fish or these particular game fish, it's like all of the minnows of your area or something like that.
That's cool.
But the point is I was just saying the funnest fish is the one that's on a line, that you feel it on the line. It's just that feeling is really, like I've said before, like if I was on my deathbed, it's like, what's the last thing you want to experience? It's like, hand me a rod that's got a fish on,
Something funny that you'll often say is like if you're fishing for a tuna, and then you catch, like you're bait fishing and you catch a haddock, like a big haddock, you're not that excited about it.
Or even a big pollock.
Yeah.
Because I only say that because the pollock will be 3-4 times the size of a haddock. So.
But it's not a tuna.
Yeah. So sometimes you're like, oh, it's just this little pollock, and it's like 4 feet long.
But if you were ground fishing that day and you caught that, you'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then it would feel big.
Yeah. That's kind of like what you have your intention set for.
Yeah. Because if you go out brook trout fishing, and you catch like an 8-inch or 9-inch brook trout, you're like, geez, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Right? But then you go out haddock fishing and you get one that's 20 inches and you're like, it's a little small.
That's funny.
Right? And even still, because like I would show pictures of that swordfish to people. And same with our tuna, because both are...
How big was the swordfish? I don't think we've said yet.
So I'm going to say between 100 and 120 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And
so that's the size of you, not including the sword.
Yeah, like
its body
physically
was as
standing
big
up
as
about
you
the
were,
size of
yeah.
me. And our bluefin was similar. Like our bluefin that we caught last year was also a small bluefin. But we'd show pictures and people would be like, wow, that fish is huge. And it's like, well,
I remember the first one we didn't take. That was like a 100-pound fish.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's a small one.
It's a small one. And then our fish was like in the 200, 220, somewhere in there between 200 and 220. And of course, that's a very small bluefin, or a small bluefin. So it's still a giant by legal standards because it's length. But, they come in various sizes larger than that. So when we caught the sword, same thing. I'm showing people pictures and people are like, wow, that fish is huge. And it's like trying to explain, well, that's a small swordfish though, And some of the pictures that I've seen, you look up like biggest swordfish caught, it's just astonishing. Where they're more like a horse. You know?
It's crazy. I wonder if anybody ever gets impaled by swordfish. Bringing them into the boat.
I've seen videos. The reason I was so nervous around that fish when it first came on the boat is I've seen video of people getting impaled on a marlin.
Jeez.
Where it's like jumped into the boat.
Yeah.
Because they just jump out of the water and like tail walk and stuff. And sometimes they end up in the boat. And I saw a guy get it through the calf. And yeah, I know.
My calf.
As you gently caress your calf.
Precious calf. Yeah, man.
Pretty scary stuff. But, they don't go around stabbing things with them. They're just hitting fish with them, stunning fish with them.
Is that what they do?
Yeah, they like smack a fish and then circle around it and grab it up.
Okay. What were we using for bait? What did we catch that fish on?
I'm trying to remember. It was a whole fish.
Was it a live fish? No, it couldn't have been live.
No, it wasn't live. But
oh, yeah, because they were laying those fish. I have a bunch of footage of them laying those fish out.
Yeah, I don't even remember now.
But it was a fish, wasn't a squid.
Because it was a squid on the down bait, but I don't remember.
I was trying to answer for somebody the other day, and I was like, I forget.
Yeah, that was one of the tough things, too, is like on a boat like that, we had 3 mates plus Austin.
They were really focused on getting us a fish, so it wasn't the most, like, they weren't really explaining a ton.
Yeah, it's like, it
was like, just stay out of the way. And when we get one on, we'll get you on the reel.
Rod. Yeah, that's both awesome and hard.
Yes.
Because
especially for someone like you.
I really like to know, like I want to rig the lines. I want to learn the knots. I want to learn how they're rigging these baits and all those kind of things. But it just wasn't that kind of experience. So.
Yeah. But it was a great experience.
It was a killer experience.
Especially if you want to go out on a charter to fish, like I would definitely hire the primary search.
I would hire the primary search in a second.
Yeah.
Austin is, he knows who's, dude. And then after that, when he took us out crabbing and clamming, too,
that was so cool.
So rad. Yeah, the clamming there was different than anything I'd experienced because here we like actually dig clams out of the sand, but there they have. Can you want to try to describe?
Wait, can we go back to the swordfish for one second?
Yeah,
How so? that bait fish is down 1,700 feet, 1,500 feet, and is that the rig that there is a light on?
There was lights, yeah.
Okay, so once you get down dark enough, then they'll start glowing.
Yeah, and those lights are neat because they attach to the line, and then they have an open circuit. So there's an anode and a cathode exposed.
Once it touches the salt?
Once the water is on it, yeah, the salt in the water conducts and completes the circuit. So it only flashes when it's in the water, or when you pull it out of the water, it still flashes for a bit, and then it eventually shuts off as it dries. So I think what's happening is that thing's just pulsing light down there, and you see the size of the eyes on those swordfish. So obviously their ability to see that from who knows how far. I bet they can see that from very far, and so can probably lots of other things. I'm guessing that accumulates bait around it, and then that I don't know exactly what's happening down there. I imagine it's hard to know what's happening down there. Yeah, but there was definitely a light on it.
But the clamming was basically, you guys had these, it's kind of like a stick the size of a broom, and on the end of it was a basket with butter knives on it. And so it's like a rake. You're basically walking like waist deep in the water, slowly raking the sand and waiting till you hear a clink. Mm-hmm. And then you dig for it and pull out a clam.
Yeah, I'd almost describe it like a lacrosse stick that then you welded a bunch of. They were actual butter knives.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. I saw a couple models when we were at one of the bait shops, and they weren't all like that, but that one, the butter knives, and the way the butter knives are aligned is the thin side faces you, so as you drag through, it cuts through the sand really easily. Mm-hmm. And then when you hit the clam, you can kind of pull it up into that little basket. The basket reminded me almost of like the metal cover that like somebody who plays lacrosse or field hockey might have over their
face mask,
that. Anyway, that was fun going around digging those clams so we were in probably waist deep water or so.
Yeah,
that was cool. Those big, heavy shelled mahogany type clams, surf clams. And then we went out and pulled blue crabs, which in Maryland is the thing.
Yeah, we didn't put much focus on it, but I'm glad we did it. We experienced it.
Well, we pulled, I think he had 5 traps out in that little bay, and that yielded quite a few crabs, because we actually, even with probably about 20 people there, we couldn't, or maybe 15 people, it's like we weren't even able to eat all those crabs. No. But that was nice, too, to get a proper blue crab eating lesson from people in Maryland.
Yeah.
Because we had done that. We had done crabs with Tony Seachrist in Savannah, blue crabs, but that's Savannah, that's Georgia. They got their own way. But in Maryland, they're like, this is how, like step by step, this is how we, and the amount of Old Bay down there.
I was looking for some the other day for the swordfish. I'm glad I didn't find it, actually.
So much.
It's great, though. It's a great seasoning.
Remember the satchel for all the fish we cooked for the episode? They had a sack. It was like a huge sack of spice that just everything was so heavily blackened.
I mean, like half of the pot that they cook the crabs in is Old Bay. It's like you put crabs, put a bunch of Old Bay, put more crabs, put a bunch of Old Bay.
Layer it in there. Right?
Yeah. But it was cool. They just dumped a bucket, like the whole pot of crabs right onto the table.
Yeah, so the table had like a paper, like kind of a craft paper, like a paper bag would be made of. Cover the whole table in that. I think it was like made for that because it had little prints of crabs along.
Yeah.
And then little wooden mallets and little knives.
And they put little books underneath each place.
Oh yeah, under each place, like at the table, had a magazine under the paper so you could bang on the table and not damage it. The lesson in crabs was cool because we had just been on Molokai in Hawaii doing crabs there,
right,
with Grandma, and getting another crab anatomy lesson on a different species, because I think we did 3 different species with her, and then the blue crabs, the 4th species, in kind of a short period of time. So kind of seeing how crabs are put together and getting a little bit more of an intimate understanding of how to deal with different species of crabs is cool.
Yeah.
But I love me some blue crabs. I was looking forever for one of those Maryland blue crab sticker decals.
Glad you got it eventually.
Finally, with the flag on it. Finally got it.
And all this stuff that we're talking about is going to be in a future episode. So
yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Me too, man. So that's season 3.
And that's going to pair with the pawpaw.
Yeah.
Some more alliteration for you.
Pair with the pawpaw, pulping and pureeing pawpaws. Michael Judd and Austin Enser in the same episode. They couldn't be more
different.
Very different characters. Such different characters. So that'd be fun to put it all together.
Yep.
But coming home from this trip, man, we were loaded. So now it's like all that fish in the freezer. I realized I was down to like 4 bags. I have 4 meals of haddock left.
Yeah,
so
I don't even know I'm not sure if I have any.
That's
or not.
all the fish I had in the freezer before we got this. So
But it's still the end. It's still the end of the white meat. Or you still got some golden tile now. And the sea bass.
Sea bass is a white meat. Yeah. I cooked a bunch of the sea bass, and those sea bass fillets we have also have the blue line tiles in them.
Yeah.
I cooked some of that for Ivani last night, and man, she was raving about it.
Did she like the swordfish?
Loved it.
Good.
Loved it. The piece I made was like too big, So, but I ended up actually eating the leftovers the next day, and they were still really, really good. And the skin, I've been cooking skin on.
You just do salt?
Yeah, salt and pepper.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've been rubbing it down a little oil too.
Do you eat the skin?
So I have eaten the skin, and it's good.
I usually do when I have swordfish.
My dogs like it too.
I just always feel like such a barbarian when I'm at dinner and I'm the only one eating the fish skin.
Yeah, but it's like, suckers.
It's like, it's not bad, right? It's good for you, I would assume.
No, it's really good for you.
I'd assume that's where all like the fatty oils are.
Yeah, you want that. It's an organ.
Yeah.
Right? One interesting thing is Diaz. So Diaz is my
little puppy.
My little purper. He's must be about 5 months old now. And so when our litter was born, Diaz was the last pup born, and so Ellie's labor went on for 36 hours, which is just crazy because the vets will tell you like after 4 hours, like the world becomes apocalyptic, and you're like, oh really? Okay, we were 36. Anyway, so she had dropped 9 pups. Some of them were stillborn. A couple of them died in the first few days. And in the end, we had 5 healthy pups. But point is, she had birthed all her pups the day before. It's the next day. We'd just been through this. Like, it was crazy. That was a crazy experience, going through all that. Mm-hmm. And it's the next day, and we think it's done. And then just randomly in the middle of the day, she just drops one more, and it's Diaz. Mm. And he's so little, and we had lost some already. He's the 10th, and hence Diaz. So I thought, this guy's not going to make it. He was so little. He was like really undersized, really runty, but he was just tenacious about feeding. And a couple of the other pups like to do this thing we call the bulldozer, where they would start at the top end of mom, and they would plow through the nipples, knocking all the other pups off. Like they were just jealously like, get off of those, and they'd push everybody off. But Diaz could not be pushed off a nipple. And he fought and fought and fought for food. Well, he's like about the most food-motivated dog I've ever seen, and he can't get enough pawpaw.
Really?
Dude, he smells it obviously from very far away.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Man, I was out walking with Ivani the other day on our track, and I was eating a pawpaw. So as I'm walking, I'm throwing seeds into the woods. He has brought back every one of those seeds.
That's so
He's
cool.
He's found them all.
And then that hound dog knows.
Yeah, exactly. He came back with a pawpaw skin the other day. He's just finding them all over, like, and any of that flesh. And so
maybe you should give him to Michael Judd.
No. Ellie and Diaz are sitting at the kitchen the other day, both sitting like wanting a handout of food, So I walk over with a little pawpaw, and I first put it near Ellie's face.
She's like,
she does that like, God, it's beneath me look. Yeah. Diaz is just like,
that's so cute.
Eats it up, Really
I thought you were going to say like swordfish skin or something.
Oh, they love that too.
That was funny to see when you were feeding him, and he had been getting kibble and canned food because you were away. And then you've cooked him up like a liver and deer, and he was dude, he's running laps around in the living room.
Just going crazy, right? Yeah, so while I've been gone a lot for the show, the pups were born. It was just so I make a dog food grind out of all of our trim. So that'll be fish skins, like whole fish sometimes, like if I have fish that I'm going to do for chum, or like if I'm, let's say I'm fishing mackerel, and at the end of the day, and I've got some mackerel in the live well that have died, like I'll just grind those into the dog food. Fish frames and stuff that I'm not going to use, bare fat, deer trimmings, connective tissue, organs, just all kinds of stuff. Grind all that, and meat too, but particularly meat that's like bloodshot or trimmed off. Anyway, I'll grind all of that, put that in Ziploc bags, and then I use that as dog food, or fortified dog food with it. Well, Diaz hadn't really had that. He'd been like living off of commercial dog food. And so the other night I cooked for him, and yeah, he was very, very visibly energized by that meal. It's been fun. I've been feeding him like that at night. He's so excited about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he loves it, man. When I make that food too, it's like, I mean, I can look in there and see like 15 different animals in there, like scales of different things, pieces of organ, stuff I'll distinctly know is bear.
Makes me want to keep like a gallon bag in the freezer, and whenever I'm trimming up meat, I'll just put it in there instead of the compost,
Oh, that's what I do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm start doing that. Just make sure to label it.
Very little animal food scrap that doesn't make it into dogs.
Yeah, I got to stop putting it in the compost and start putting it in the dog.
This is the thing. My dogs were Ellie was always getting overweight, and
she looks so good right now.
Yeah, because Avani's taken over the food portioning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just like tremendously overfeeding her. When I look at what she feeds, I'm like, really? That's it? It's so meager. Then I look, and Ellie's so healthy looking like this. So now whenever I go to feed her, I'll be like, babe, is this right? Is this the right amount? She's like, that's a little heavy. It's like, oh, okay. It's hard.
You feed her twice a day?
She does. I always fed him once a day, but she feeds him twice a day. So yeah, that's working out a little bit better. But yeah, they'll eat any animal parts that I can, like anything that I trim off.
Yeah.
I would never throw it away. Diaz will eat banana though, you know what I mean? He's just a very, very hungry dog. Yeah. So what's next, man? We're heading off to this island for some archery.
Some deer hunting, yeah.
I've been shooting the bow all week.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Practice. I liked Mark's advice, Mark Doring.
Be prepared to, it's like I don't really archery hunt.
Basically, like be prepared to be patient, right?
Yeah, be prepared to be patient. Be prepared to watch a lot of deer that you can't shoot.
Because it's not the right angle?
Yeah, or more like they're out of range.
Yeah.
Don't stretch your range. Yeah, man, archery hunting is not something I have a lot of experience with, so we're heading off on a deer archery hunt solo, and the logistics are complicated since we'll be driving several hours towing a boat, and then it'll be the boat out threading through a bunch of channels to a specific island, mooring the boat, paddling a canoe to the island, setting up tree stands, hunting from that, and then hopefully getting a deer, putting it on the canoe, paddling it back to the boat, unmooring the boat, going back to shore, trailering the boat, getting out. It's going to be quite a mission.
It'll be good, though. It'll be great footage. It's going to be a fun adventure. I'm excited to go to the island this weekend and just kind of scope it out and set up stands.
I'm wondering if that Bluetti lithium-ion battery power station will be enough to charge your batteries for a couple days. Have you looked? It's an inverter, man. It's like it'll run a refrigerator.
Really?
Yeah.
But how are we going to keep it charged? Just solar panels?
I think it will have enough charge in it to run your batteries for like 2-3 days.
We can try it.
I want to look it up today and just sort of see what.
We should try it, like do a test run.
Yeah, because I don't want to be running a gas-powered generator out there if we don't have to.
I mean, either.
But pretty excited. We're almost through season 3. It won't be long, and we'll be going to air. And some of the episodes, Cody's been turning in the edits, and they're, so we've got the Avani's Turkey episode. Mm-hmm. It's just awesome. I love that episode. And the Alewife episode's so good.
That new cut's amazing, huh?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I'm excited for folks to see it. So, a lot of fun at WildFed, man. I'm really enjoying it.
Me too. It's growing.
It's growing.
Yeah, I like the way it's growing.
Me too, man. And I think we were just talking about it, but hopefully here in the United States we're really sheltered from sort of the famine and food shortages that are sort of on the horizon. But the winter of 2022 into 2023 and 2024 look like they're going to pose a lot of challenges for food supplies around the world. It's going to be stretched pretty thin. I love that we're getting to share this stuff with folks.
Yeah, me too.
And it's not necessarily because the things we do are accessible to everybody, but because they show what kind of things are accessible. If you just watch traditional hunting shows, you'd be like, well, you can eat deer and turkey and moose and elk or whatever, you know.
But you can also eat cicadas.
Yeah, like I love what we do because we're showing such a range of edibility in the environment, from plants to mushrooms to algae to animals. And then from animals like a swordfish or a bear, but all the way down to, like you said, like little microscopic machine animals like cicadas or, you know, clams or crabs or even like little periwinkles.
Yeah.
And I think that people have forgotten. I'm reading a really cool book right now called Ancestral Appetites. It's an anthropologist looking at human diets through time. It's a big macro view of what humans have eaten traditionally, you know, especially pre-agriculture and stuff. And you look at what we're eating today, it's just been so truncated. It's like such a small suite of things compared to what our traditional food sources are. You know, one of the things that's come up, I've had so many people give me shit about the cicadas because people
Really?
yeah, only because in the circles of people who follow our work, there's no shortage of people on the, what do you want to call it, the like freedom side. And there's so much going on right now with like the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and those folks who are really interested in the like in 10 years you will own nothing and you'll be happy, that kind of stuff. Well, they're really pushing a meatless future or a very little meat kind of a future. So plant-based diets, insect-based diets, things like that. And they've mentioned insect farming for protein so much that when you bring up eating insects, I just get a lot of hate from people about like, oh, Klaus Schwab is going to love this. What are you working for the World Economic Forum? You know, that kind of stuff. And I have to be like, dude,
it's different.
They didn't invent, first of all, they didn't invent eating insects. This is something humans have always done. It's called entomophagy and it's ancient. Second, I didn't get these cicadas from some kind of high-rise intensive factory farmed insect facility. These are like wild creatures. That is not, Klaus Schwab doesn't want you to go out and harvest the wild cicadas. He wants you to eat crickets from Bill Gates' farm or something. You know what I mean? It's like it's a different thing. So anyway, I find that a little bit amusing, but I like reminding people what's edible.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully that's not something we ever need out here in the North America, but it's like useful to know. Yeah. And I just think it's important to keep this stuff alive.
At the very least, it's fun.
I mean, at the very least, it's fun. But it's always beyond that because it's so much better for you, too, to eat wild foods like this. It's so good for you. People can stay tuned to Season 3. We'll be airing probably around January. Huh?
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait. Already thinking about Season 4, too. Really would like to get out to Mexico this spring. I'm very interested in the ocellated turkey and the escamoles. Speaking of insects, that's that ant larva that gets used in Oaxacan food.
It just looks like food when you look at it.
Yeah, I know. I'm really excited. You know what? I got to say, it really looks like food. A cross section of swordfish steak.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's that.
I went around showing everybody at camp. It's like, just look at this.
You're doing the same thing I'm doing. Yeah, it's like
and everybody's like, oh my God.
It's like rings of a tree or something inside there, right?
Yeah.
It's neat to see, those concentric circles of muscle fiber.
So cool.
Yeah, you just know when you look at that. You're like, that's food. Like, it reminds me sometimes when I'm doing slideshows because I'll be on like Adobe Images or whatever to get stock photography. And so often I've needed like pictures of like whole food diet stuff. So there'll be like a photo of lots of like vegetables and nuts and seeds and meat and stuff like that. And they always use a piece of fish that has that kind of look to it with those concentric rings, you know, piece of swordfish. But that's like pretty delightful. Yeah, my freezers are full, man. It's I'm going into it with we got the black buck antelope and the axis deer.
Into what?
Winter. going into winter. Winter with freezers just loaded. And, and you got your doe tag. I got my doe tag for Maine this year.
I've got a bunch of fish. We have a lot of the same stuff. Yeah. Because it comes from these episodes, but
you got a cow this year too, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna get it. That's gonna like really fill the freezer. Yeah. But I've got the fish and still got pork supplementing the red meat. Squirrel.
I don't have any squirrels yet.
Still got sea duck. I think I got to give that to dogs.
Eat that. I think I have some sea duck.
It's not from last winter. It's from the winter before,
I
I
think.
think.
Duck legs. When I get rid of this refrigerator, I got to go through that little freezer that, like the little refrigerator freezer. Dude, it's got some stuff in the back there. I still have that eel.
All sorts
of
penis bones.
Oh, I do have some swizzle sticks in my freezer too. Now that you say it, I have to deal with that.
I was digging yesterday, and I found a little spike velvet antler.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh yeah,
I have the other one.
I'm supposed to tincture this.
I have the other one. Yeah, there's some horrifying things in the box. One day I'd like to switch to all stand-up freezers.
I also found this puddle of melted goo, and I was like, oh, what could this be? Oh no! And then I saw Kendall had bought these coconut popsicles that had melted, and I was like, thank God. It's like during a power
bear
outage,
semen or something like that. Yeah, man, I'm gonna pile up the squirrels this year. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I got that new 1022, that one from Volquartsen with the carbon fiber barrel.
Oh yeah,
because I got rid of that one that we used. I had that Taxol takedown that we got for the Prairie Dog episode this year that we made.
Yeah,
but I got rid of it and switched to the Volquartsen's one piece.
You got that from Nick?
Yeah. And oh, by the way, Nick, I didn't tell you this yet, but so Koo, who was on the episode for folks listening, from Molokai, he was shooting the 6.5 PRC.
Yeah.
And you remember how, he was rationing out the ammo, be like, here's 3 rounds. So Nick found him a case.
Nice.
Of the ammo he shoots, and he's just sent it out. So
sweet.
Pretty pumped about that. Get some ammo out to them there, but
and that 22 you were talking about is it's the same build as the Ruger 1022, or it's completely different?
It's a 1022 clone.
Yeah.
It must be that they're after a time, your patent runs out or whatever, and so it's like a clone of it, but all upgraded. So Volquartsen, I think, was one of the pioneers of upgrading the 1022 and a couple of the other models of Rugers. So anyway, it uses the same magazine, but it's got that carbon fiber barrel. It's got a really nice monolithic aluminum upper with a built-in Picatinny rail. It's just a super sweet 22.
I've been enjoying shooting squirrels with my little air rifle.
I think air rifles are the way to go.
It's so cool.
It's the way to go.
It's just a break barrel one, so it's not like you're using a cartridge. But I took out a gray squirrel, probably from 25 yards.
It's pretty good for that's an off-the-shelf Crossman or something.
It's $100.
Gammo?
No, it's a Gammo.
Yeah.
Shadow Whisper, I think. It's a 177 caliber.
Yeah. Did you order it or did you buy it?
No, I just bought it in the store.
At a Walmart or something?
Yeah, at a Walmart.
It's pretty cool that an over-the-counter or
I did my research online, then found out Walmart had it, and then picked it up.
I just think that's the future, man. I'm like,
because I have 400 rounds for $20. It's just in case. I've shot. I go to the farm where I get my cow, and just shoot their pigeons. They hate the pigeons. It shoots all over the hay, so I can shoot pigeons there.
Yeah. Yeah. No firearm regulation. Can be sent through the mail, can be bought over the counter. There's no background checks, none of the stuff that makes having a firearm complicated.
Yeah.
The downside, because I've been thinking a lot about this, I really want one of those Edgun Leshy 2s that Python Cowboy uses.
Yeah.
That's such a sweet air gun. The downside to air guns, from what I understand, and maybe somebody can correct me here, but all the ammunition I've seen is lead. Now, and it's exposed lead. So let's say you get a 22 long rifle cartridge. That's lead, typically.
The copper tip.
With a copper plating.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right? So it's not like a full metal jacket or something where you have jacketed lead. This is just like a molecular coating of copper. And you do see 22 long rifle with exposed lead tips too. But anyway, when you're dealing with pellets like those 177s you have, they're just lead. I mean, you're reaching into like a little jar of lead with your fingers.
You can get alloy.
That's what I'm wondering. Okay, so
you can, but I know they shoot faster.
Yeah, because they're
louder
and they're lighter.
Okay. That makes
sense. So they would go faster.
But not as much.
But then you have less foot-pounds energy when they hit. Yeah, I'm just wondering about that because the lead seems like if you're worried about lead toxicity, then actually handling them with your fingers seems like
I wash my hands
idea.
right after every time.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes find myself putting like a couple of them in my mouth. Do you ever do that?
No. Only because but I do put a big bunch of them in my pocket.
Because sometimes I want to shoot something outside. So like I run over and I grab my air rifle and I'll have a couple of those and I want to be able to quick load if I miss, or if I need a follow-up shot. So sometimes I'll like place them between my lips and I'm like, that's stupid.
Yeah. Gammo does have a air gun that has a cartridge. So every time you break the barrel, it automatically loads another one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't think the technology is like.
You mean it has a magazine?
Yeah. Thank you. It's a magazine. It's just this little circle that sits on top.
Well, that's that Egg Gun Leshy runs it around magazine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the future for a lot of us, especially as firearms become, just the trajectory is more and more regulation, not less. It doesn't look like we're heading into a less regulated environment. So.
And that Ed gun. That was shooting lead when we were down in Florida with him?
Yeah, but I think they were 30 caliber that he was shooting.
I mean, yeah, there's some pretty big rounds.
50 calibers.
Like big game hunting.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of folks are going to go that direction over time. So, yeah, I'd like to get in that game. I'm thinking about reaching out to Ed Gun and just seeing if they would be interested in working with us.
Yeah, why not?
That's a UK manufacturer, though. But over there where firearms are so restricted, I imagine their air guns have gotten, that seems like a more advanced air gun than, I like, when I want to see like a cross-section of what's out there for air guns, I go to airgunsofarizona.com.
Okay. Because
they've got pages and pages and pages of all like the best stuff.
What's that one that you have? The 177?
That's, Wormerock.
Because I know it's pretty respected brand.
I don't know, it's a German name. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But that's a good one, but it's really low powered. I got it specifically when Alan invited us out to shoot pigeons. So you wouldn't shoot holes in the barn? That's what's nice about them too, is if you're shooting around structures, so with birds and squirrels and stuff, they tend to be, if they're on your roof or something like that, it's not like you want to be banging 22 holes in your roof or woodwork or anything. So, man,
the one time I scoped myself though was with an air little break barrel air rifle. Because you need to get there's a lot of force in there. I think.
Yeah.
Because you have to get a special scope for an air rifle, a special air rifle scope.
Yeah, they don't run the same scopes as a firearm.
Because there's so much. Do you know how that works? Why that is?
I'm not really sure.
Yeah, but anyways, after when I was sighting that rifle in, I had a big mark on my unibrow.
Oh, dude, watching the cut of the new edit of the Alewife episode.
If you look really closely, Daniel has a...
Really closely? You don't have to look that closely. I have a black eye through the whole birch syrup scene, man. It's so brutal. Yeah, I'm doing private jiu-jitsu now to try to avoid any more black eyes. But one thing I want to say before we go, and I hit it pretty heavy in the ads lately, but man, it's pawpaw season still, and if you want to get pawpaws, one of our sponsors, foraged.market. So I got in touch with them the other day because I was like, hey, it's pawpaw season, but when I went to your website, all the pawpaw stuff was like sold out or had a wait list. And he's like, oh, that's because the whole harvest comes in at once. Like they do it all in like a week in Ohio. And so you get on the wait list and they start shipping then. So I just want to say to people, if they're interested in getting pawpaws, but they live in a place, man, I've been saying pawpaw so many times, it gets like,
pawpaw
starts to sound weird in my head.
Yeah.
But if you want to get pawpaws and you're not in pawpaw country and you keep hearing me talk about pawpaws, go over to forage.market. In fact, they created a landing page that's a little bit better to go to than, because you can go to forage.market and just search it in their search bar.
I checked it out yesterday. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's cool, right? So if you go to forage.market / or is it backslash or
I don't know.
Let's just call it slash. You know the slash. Foraged.market / you know the slash. Forage.market / pawpaws, plural pawpaws. Did you notice Michael Judd's courses up there on that page?
No, I didn't.
So they're working with him too. So his online course.
I know his book was up there. I saw his book.
Yeah, and there's another cookbook. Anyway, but also whole pawpaws, pawpaws by the case, pawpaw seedlings, like pawpaw puree, which there's another alliteration, pawpaw puree. All that is at foraged.market.
And they're just doing fresh pawpaws there as well?
As well, yeah.
Frozen? Pulped?
Frozen pulped, yeah, but also whole fruits.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Anyway, pretty cool because it's like, you just don't want to miss this. We called our episode an American Treasure, which I think is pretty accurate. You just deserve to know this fruit exists and to have some good examples of it.
To eat a fresh one is pretty special.
To eat a pawpaw.
To eat a pawpaw.
Oh, Grant, great talking to you, buddy.
You too. You want to have a pawpaw? Try to find a Shenandoah?
Let's go dig through them.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the WildFed podcast. Help us grow this show by subscribing and leaving us a rating and review. It ensures better rankings and more advertiser interest, which translates directly into better shows, more awesome guests, and a constant stream of fresh new content. Have a question you'd like answered on the show, or a hunting, fishing, or foraging trip you'd like to host us on? Email us at info@wild-fed.com. If you still haven't seen season 1 of the WildFed TV show, you can go to myoutdoortv.com, grab yourself a free trial subscription, and then check out all 10 episodes. Season 2 of WildFed premieres on Outdoor Channel in early 2022. And be sure to visit our website, wild-fed.com, to check out our store for WildFed hats, stickers, and more. WildFed. Food is all around you.